evening to all of you. So, the last class we were studying public policy, the meaning, nature and scope of public policy. So we discussed what is public policy, what is its nature, and what is its scope. And at the same time, we also considered briefly the public policy process. Yeah? So the public policy process involved a few stages. What are the stages involved in the public policy process? Agenda setting, then the policy making, policy implementation, policy monitoring, then policy evaluation. Okay. So let me give you a brief outline to that very class. Okay. See, as far as the public policy is concerned, we discussed that it is a broad guideline based on which the day-to-day decision making within the government is undertaken. Or public policy can be referred to as the framework within which the government undertakes or the governmental actions are guided. And it could be, as far as the nature is concerned, we discussed that how it could be narrow, it could be broad, it could be positive, it could be negative, it could be coercive, it could be persuasive, it could be developmental, it could be non-developmental. So the public policy can have multiple attributes. And as far as scope is concerned, we discussed that the scope of public policy is not constant. It is vast, but at the same time, it varies. It's something overlapping with the scope of public administration. As the scope of public administration is not settled and it keeps on oscillating or vacillating, similarly, the scope of public policy is not settled. It also keeps on vacillating or oscillating. But nevertheless, its scope is wide, its scope is very vast, and it moreover depends on the nature of the state. It moreover depends on the nature of the state and number of what we can say the environmental or ecological factors. Having discussed that, we referred that the public policy as a process, because public policy is not a single activity, something very much similar to that of the decision making. It is not an one-shot activity. It is a process. So thereby, it comprises of a number of stages or a series of stages. Those series of stages includes 1, the agenda setting, 2, the public policy formulation or public policy making, 3, the public policy implementation, and subsequent to that is public policy monitoring and evaluation. In this, we did refer to the agenda setting because, before the government, because public policy is the government policy, it is formulated by the government, but before government takes cognizance of any issue for the purpose of public policy formulation, it in fact emerges from the society itself. So the source of public policy is the community, is the people, is the society. So in fact, that's why the stage just prior to public policy making is what is referred to as agenda setting. That agenda setting is that that is a premise that is actually built. The very premise that is built for the purpose of policy formulation. So it starts with the agenda setting. Basically, it starts with the recognition of some issue at the community level or at the society level. So certain issues can keep concerning people. So once it concerns people, to a substantial number of people or a recognizable number of people, the people start discussing about it, start discussing about the issue, about the possible solutions, and only when it becomes, let's say, widespread, somewhat a significant categories gets concerned about the same, then the government recognizes that issue for the purpose of formulation. So that stage is what is referred to as agenda setting. So this is what we have done in the previous class. So we'll be continuing with the phases of policy process, or moreover, we'll continue with the policy process. The first stage, in fact, typically, normally when we consider the process of policy, public policy, it starts with policy formulation. But although prior to that is one stage, that is recognizing that issue, the society becoming concerned about that issue, debating, discussing about that issue, and finally taking note of that particular issue. So the next topic that we will be discussing is public policy formulation. Agenda setting, I did not elaborate in the last class. Okay. So first of all, let me deal with the agenda setting, and subsequent to that, I will take up public policy formulation. Okay. In fact, whatever I discussed, that is what is agenda setting, but since it is being raised, let me bit elaborate it. Public policy is the government policy. That's what is public, because policies could be private policy. So government policy, as we have already discussed while discussing the definition or the meaning, that it is a broad framework within which the government is guided, the government decision making takes place. So the entire machinery of the government, because government is a huge institution, and at the same time, government is a purposive institution. It's a very large institution, and at the same time, it is a purposive institution. So government is there to attain a purpose, a goal. And that goal is the well-being of the people. So in that particular context, what all the government has to do and what all government is not going to do, that needs to be defined in advance. Because since the governmental project, the governmental responsibility is very large, so that is why it needs to be properly planned. So government cannot go about addressing its responsibility in a chaotic manner. So since it is a very large responsibility, it's very because government deals with numerous people and their requirements. That is why the governmental responsibilities has to be planned, properly planned. And at the same time, the government machinery itself is a huge machinery. So it is important to understand, since the government is a purposive institution and at the same time is a large institution, the government activities needs to be well established in advance, well coordinated, then only the governmental activities are possible. So in order to establish what government has to do and what government will not do. And at the same time, to ensure that the governmental machinery operates with coordination. So the public policy is very much required. So the public policies are government policies. In fact, that is nothing but a broad framework that guides the government, one, in attaining certain goals that is valuable for the government, and second, that helps the entire government machinery to operate in a coordinated manner. So that is why we say that public policy is a broad framework within which the day-to-day decision making of the government takes place. With how an officer at the field level will know what decisions to take and what decision not to take. How the government employees at various level will get to know what to do and what not to do. So basically, all these decisions, the day-to-day decisions, are guided by certain laws, certain rules, certain regulations, and these laws, rules, and regulations are in turn guided by policies. This you need not write. This is what we discussed in the meaning. So what I'm trying to say is that if you take into account the government policy is basically the intention of the government, what government intends to do and what government does not intend to do. Or maybe some other theorist will say it's not merely intention, rather what government actually does and what government actually does not. But see, the government, before it actually finalizes that what is important for the government and what is not important for the government, because that is what is captured through what is being referred to as public policy. So before government does this, there is a process involved, because government cannot arbitrarily pick up anything. Generally, if you try to understand that how government picks up what is important and what is not important, or generally, if you try to understand what government finally considers for the purpose of public policy, we will find that this is a process that the source of which lies in the society itself, the source of which lies in the community itself. That means, theorists would say that public policy starts not at the level of the government, rather at the level of society. So public policy does not start at the level of the government. The public policy, in effect, starts right from the people, right from the community or the society. That means the source of the public policy are the people themselves. So people actually, on a day-to-day basis, they encounter or they come across number of issues, but not necessarily all these issues that different people encounter bothers a substantial number of people. So individual on a day-to-day basis, they might be facing what? Different issues, multiple issues. But not necessarily all the issues that is concerning people gets the attention of substantial number of people. So there are few that attracts the attention of a substantial number of people. So once an issue bothers a substantial number of people, it tends to gain attention of what? People in general. So the people in general, whether in neighborhood or in community, or for that matter, a particular area or a particular city or simply it start getting recognition by whom? People in general and their institutions. So maybe the local institutions might be there, resident welfare association or neighborhood association, or traditional bodies like, let's say, in Indian context, if you refer to as, let's say, the panchayats or something like that. So once an issue becomes important for a group of people, that means a substantial number of people, it start getting attention by people in general and their institutions. That is at which level? At the society level. Now, this is the stage. This is the stage when people start discussing about what is that issue? What is the source of that issue? So that means what, why, how, when, where of the issue starts getting attention. So people start taking note of what? They start debating. They start discussing. So they start actually, simply what we can say, they start collecting information with regard to that particular issue under consideration. And during this, one important exercise that is also taking place or getting attention is the solution. So people not only take note of the issue, try to understand what is that issue, they also start debating about what? How to deal with that? What could be the possible solutions? So only when an issue attracts the attention of a large number of people and starts being a part of what you say public discourse, the government takes note of it. The government takes note of it. This is the stage, what is being referred to as agenda setting.